Hey everyone, I'm on holiday right now, which is why it's a weird background, but I've just spoken to Simon McLaughlin, who is the CEO of Uphold. Yes, I talked to him. We answered loads of questions that the community had. If you were in the Discord, if you're not in the Discord, make sure you join. It's completely free. And I also asked him some of my own questions specifically relating to the XRP ledger and where he stands with the court case, where Uphold stands with how they're going to use XRP or the XRP ledger in the future potentially. So we cover all of that in this video. Make sure you get all the way to the end of the video. And what I want you to do is pull out your favorite clip. And if you can clip that little clip, tag me on Twitter, tag me on Instagram, share that around in the world, your favorite clip from this interview. I'll see you then. I've got a bunch of questions from the community that they wanted to ask. Those are typically more like, I think those are typically more feature based. Some of the questions I wanted to touch on and get into was more of like the inner workings of Uphold. And about the everything, that how it operates in the background financially, and just my community is very technical, and so they like to understand how these things work. And the reason the reason I'm taking this angle is because Uphold's not an exchange.
Correct.
Is it? It's also listed as a bank.
So it's not a bank. No, I guess the closest analogy from the world of traditional finance would be a prime broker. One of the things I love about Uphold, and I would say it's our strongest advantage, is that we're connected to 29 underlying liquidity venues. So we source liquidity from 17 centralized exchanges. We're connected to a whole bunch of decentralized exchanges, layer twos and roll-ups. And what that means is, the customer transacts with our inventory, and we balance our inventory on these underlying trading venues. As you know, the price of digital assets varies very significantly between different trading venues, even now. So it means we can go out to market and optimally execute orders, so the customer gets a good price. And one of the things I was really proud of last year is when all that Lunar Sea stuff was happening, Uphold was one of the very few major trading venues where customers could continue to sell their assets because of the depth of liquidity. If you're on a single order book exchange, you can quickly burn through the order book, and in those situations you don't have access to liquidity.
Yeah. And so am I right in saying when you're talking about liquidity, you're talking about traditional nostro vostro type holding to facilitate that liquidity? How does that work?
I don't know about nostro vostro. I'm not an expert in that, but what we do is spot trading on the secondary market. And as I say, the system is set up for optimal execution and deep liquidity. Every time a customer trades, they're transacting with our inventory, our book, and then we go out and rebalance the book whenever our risk thresholds are exceeded. Yeah. Okay. So in my mind, and I know nostro vostro is for like banking, and I know that's a separate topic, but so there's basically liquidity held on the book to facilitate those spot trades. Then you kind of back it up on the other end to kind of balance it all. That's right. And for customers, the benefits are you're getting some of the very best pricing in the market, because we're surveying all the different underlying exchanges, and we're directing the order to the most price efficient exchange. So it's a model I really like. And the crucial thing in digital assets is if there's a sudden price collapse in an asset, you want to be able to sell it. You need the security of being having access to liquidity, being able to sell. And because Uphold is connected to so many venues, we continue trading when many other venues don't have the liquidity to do so. Yeah, absolutely. So as we move forward towards blockchain and how blockchain's really just changing the world, it's really interesting to me how companies within crypto, which I would put Uphold in that category, it's kind of there's a tipping point where you go from having to use the traditional system to actually let's use the system that we're involved in. Where are we on that scale? It's a really interesting question, because at some point, we obviously want to transfer our own ledger to a blockchain.
Yeah.
And at the moment, we're not on a blockchain, and it's to do with speed and cost and all the things we know about. But it's firmly in our roadmap of intentions that we want to be based on a decentralized ledger. We're taking a really important step this year in regards to custody, because we're introducing something in September called Uphold Vault. It will first be launched on the XRP ledger. And it's the first time that a platform has combined the convenience of CeFi with the ultimate security of a self-custodial wallet. So what it will do is a customer will be given 3 keys. The customer will hold 2 keys. We will hold 1 as a backup. So the customer can move the funds without any recourse to Uphold. If our app is down, you can still move the funds wherever you want, but the funds remain proximate to the Uphold trading platform. So you can easily pull them back from your self-custodial wallet and trade on the platform, but you've got the total security that, they're in a self-custodial wallet to which you hold the keys. That's something we've wanted to do for a long time. And I really do think that product is going to be special. It's also multi-chain, so at the moment, as you know, I'm sure, when on different layer 1 networks, when you get outside of the majors, at least, you need a different non-custodial wallet for each chain. It's incredibly inconvenient. The key management is really clunky and difficult. And so what we're doing is we're going to support a whole bunch of layer 1 chains through this self-custodial wallet. And we're also going to make key recovery incredibly easy. You're not going to have to remember or store 12 different words or seed phrases. We're really trying to take aim at the biggest problem in crypto, which I would argue is, for the average person, holding crypto securely is difficult.
Yeah.
This makes holding crypto securely in the way it was meant to be held, i.e. in a self-custodial wallet, really, really easy. So, we're really focusing on that and working hard to get that launched in September, and it's the XRP community who'll see it first.
All right, interesting. I think it's a good community to go after first, to be honest, because we're so keen for stuff like this.
I think so. Yeah.
I think it's interesting because that typically when you're an entrant into the market, or let's say an entrant into the concept of securing your assets, that you either have it on an exchange or you have a cold storage wallet. The cold storage wallet is cumbersome, got to click a load of buttons, you've got to set it up, it's kind of annoying. But then after that, there's going to be a wealth of options within this area, whether you're retail or, I've forgotten the word, but institutional, if you're institutional grade, where we obviously falling within the retail space here because if you've got a easy UX, that user interface for the website. And so will there be kind of a business offering or an institutional offering within that Vault offering?
That's a great question. Earlier this year, we launched an institutional version of Uphold for the first time. It's called Uphold Ascent. And the reason we did it was going back to the strengths of the core platform, access to that liquidity through 29 different trading venues, including decentralized exchanges where a lot of interesting tokens appear first. Institutions want access to that. And working on the institutional side, where incidentally we're seeing really nice demand, particularly in the UK and Europe and Switzerland, the custody question came up. In the institutional side, we're working with a firm called Anchorage, which is a qualified custodian, because a lot of these institutions have their own accounts at Anchorage, and they want the security of a registered qualified custodian, a US term of art. So on the institutional side, we're working with Anchorage, but it's quite interesting because internally we've been having those discussions about, hang on, Vault would be a great solution here. Why do we need a third party? But I think the institutional market is, inherently cautious, and they want to go with, appropriately licensed entities. So as I say, for Ascent, we're working with Anchorage.
Okay. That's yeah, it's interesting. Is the retail vault, is that built on with a custodian partner, or is that made by Uphold?
That's made by Uphold. It's being led by a guy called Stephen McNamara, who is a very well known member of the Bitcoin community in the space, for 10 or 12 years, and he's bringing a lot of those Bitcoin maximalist principles, very purist approach to the design of the vault. So tremendously excited for him and his team to be leading it. They're based in Ireland, but this is a proprietary innovation out of Uphold Labs, which is where we focus on this this pure crypto innovations.
And I'm sure it sounds like, because it's retail facing, there would be very low barrier to entry. Because I'm discussing a lot the Polysign and Fireblocks and Blockdaemon and all of these other kind of custodian services. If you want to be involved with them as an individual, there's a very high barrier to that. You have to kind of have $1 million in your portfolio type thing. I'm assuming it would just be plug and play type thing.
It's plug and play from $1, absolutely. I mean, so many of these services effectively lock out the majority of the market because they have ridiculous minimum thresholds.
Yeah.
Again, a big part of Uphold's ethos is opening up services that are otherwise unavailable. So Uphold Vault is a great example of we're opening up a really well thought through, easy to use form of self-custody for the average retail customer.
Yeah, I think that's really important. It's a whole area that's not being dealt with. Especially for a lot of the people who kind of have that block for the technology side of things. Setting up the wallet is kind of a real headache, and I've seen that multiple times. Countless times. So having that onboarding for someone who doesn't need all of that is really, really useful. I want to go back quickly just to looking towards the future. When it does come to a moment where you have to transfer onto a blockchain and have your ledger basically on a blockchain, what are the considerations moving forward? Obviously, you have to have liquidity, it has to be fast, it has to be cheap. Have you been having those conversations in the background about where its home might be?
Not yet. No, not yet. It's something that we haven't reached yet. I think late this year is a good time to start having those conversations about what's the appropriate home.
Right.
And we'd obviously want to be very very confident. I mean, a lot of people forget a lot of this technology is just so new. It's such a new space that you don't want to make, a pivotal bet before you're pretty sure of your facts. And so, we'd obviously want to be super confident about, the right combination of cost, speed, and security. And there's a multiplicity of choices out there right now. But, it's definitely getting to the point where previously it wasn't a practical option. It was a dream. Now it's increasingly becoming something we can look at as a practical option.
Yeah. What needs to be seen in the world that kind of triggers that conversation at a company like Uphold? Like, because it always, I think even for the next kind of 5 years still, it's going to be an emerging market. So it's kind of like thinking about at what point does it get treated so seriously? Like, what has to happen?
Yeah. I think what we'd like, I mean, look, as a financial institution, your number one responsibility is, can you keep people's money safe? If you can't do that, you're not a credible financial institution, right? So that is the paramount consideration. And I think what we'd want to see is, we'd also want the confidence of seeing some really big traditional financial institutions adopting a certain blockchain consistently.
Yeah.
Simply because, not because, TradFi is better or anything like that. It's just that the amount of brain power going into the choice, gives you an enormous degree of confidence that you're keeping good company. Yeah,
absolutely. And this kind of goes, obviously all the different communities believe that their blockchain's the best, right? And so I would always be kind of vying for the XRP ledger and what XRP can do with liquidity and all of that stuff. But it's interesting that you say it's actually about the environment of the actions people are taking, the big players are taking around the world, and it's kind of joining their confidence with it. It's kind of I'm not taking away this from Uphold and the due diligence that Uphold would do, but there's something about other people doing their due diligence and coming to a consensus that kind of lets everyone jump on.
Yeah, I mean, you really, on a decision like that, you definitely don't want to be the outlier. You know, you want to be able to stand up and say, look, we made a very credible, sensible, conservative choice, because it cuts to the heart of the whole security issue. But you know, it goes without saying, we love blockchain. We want to make that move at some point.
Yeah, that's nice to hear. That's nice to hear, because you know, when especially in the depths of a bear market, it's kind of you're kind of desperate for companies to start having that adoption rollout. You know? And so we feel like we're early to this whole conversation because we're so talking about it every day, basically. So we can often, like you said, get kind of caught up and not realize how early we are. And businesses move at their pace. We have to kind of wait for that.
No, I mean, it's even now, it's so analogous to the very early days of the internet. When you look back to it, you know, I can remember in the mid-90s, you know, having the first interaction, you know, through a web browser and so on. And when you look back, you realize that nobody had any idea at that point, really, which business models were going to be successful, which were going to tank, how the technology was going to develop. You know, a lot of the technical stuff that people were obsessed with then, nobody talks about it, right? Nobody talks about, you know, server connections and DNS and all TCP. You know, the technical stuff is history. But the point I'm making is, you know, we don't know today what business models on blockchain, which applications are going to turn into the future Amazons, Facebooks, and so on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate all of that, the honesty, and especially it's really good for the community to know where we are on the timeline of things. Keeps us grounded, and something to look forward to as well when that when not just Uphold but lots of companies in this space start kind of using the blockchain technology. It's going to be very exciting. So I've got some questions. One of these is, it resonated with me, was about the 4% cashback on XRP.
Yes.
And it went to 2%. We were loving 4%.
Well, I mean, the good news is it's still 4% if you spend crypto. But we found that people were loading fiat, spending fiat, never touching crypto, and that was just uncommercial, right? We were just paying money out, and there were no compensating trades where we earned a commission. So it was just like, yeah, that doesn't work. So I mean, the good news is, even on fiat, it's still 2%. Yeah. But you know, if you use it, if you spend anything else apart from fiat, it's 4%.
Yeah. We were. I was talking with my wife about that, because I was like, we could move our mortgage payment to Uphold and make it from it's easy XRP. So I guess that was a loophole that I was exploiting there, and I shouldn't have been.
So it was you. Interesting.
It was me, yeah. But yeah, 2% is great, and 4% on crypto.
Yeah, 2% on fiat, 4% in crypto. And the UK at the moment is, I think I'm right in saying, I think that's the only territory where we've got that card out with that offer. We want to roll it out in the United States later this year. But you know, the UK actually is the most mature offering on Uphold, because you've got the staking program, which is fantastic. We offer staking on 30 assets, instant in and out, competitive rates, and you get the card. So you'll see Uphold for the first time on underground station adverts and so on over the next few weeks, because you know the product's at a state of maturity where we want to really raise the brand.
Great, good. I'll look forward to seeing that in person. I've got, because a lot of my audience is in the US and worldwide, basically. What's the kind of rollout plans worldwide for the card, staking, all of that stuff?
Well, in the US, we want to introduce the card at the end of this year with the XRP offer. The last week's court decision makes that a lot easier. You know, you have to, when you roll out these kind of programs, you need to persuade your banking partners, you know, and get them comfortable. So the US looks good for the last quarter of this year. And staking's an interesting one in the US. We withdrew it because of the SEC action. We're now looking at it again. Look, I feel that you're not a credible crypto platform unless you offer staking. So I have a very strong predisposition that we need to reintroduce staking in the US as soon as we can. We're taking legal advice at the moment. Reading the judgment from last week's court case, which was extraordinarily well written. If you haven't read it, it's actually worth a read because it's so clear and in plain English. But you know, again, I walked away from thinking, you know, using the logic in that court case, there's no way staking qualifies as a security. I mean, it depends on the facts and circumstances of the individual offer. I get it, but inherently, I don't believe staking should be problematic in the US. But as I say, we're hoping to reintroduce it either later this year or early next. And then the big plan after that is Europe. So we're currently licensed in Lithuania as a VASP. And, you know, for the first time, I mean, Mike is a brilliant thing for the whole industry. The first comprehensive set of really carefully thought through regulation for digital assets, you know, with definitions, boundaries, clarity. That's going to be fantastic. We're launching a major push into Europe next year. And obviously we want to be passported across Europe from our Lithuanian entity. But Europe is going to be increasingly, I think, a real center for our industry going forward. And as I said earlier, you know, we're seeing a lot of institutional adoption now. Now there's a clear set of rules coming. Guess what? Everybody can adopt can look at the technology seriously.
Yeah. What do you, just as a random question, what do you look at to talk about classifications of these digital assets? Because there's so many stable coins, currencies, utility, whatever. How do you look at XRP as a token?
Well, I think XRP is super interesting. You know, it's got a very clearly defined use case, which is let's solve the problem of international payments for enterprises. And what we love about tokens that have a very clear use case is, you know, you can understand the fundamental value that can be potentially created by that token. So we've always loved XRP because of that, and also it's getting real adoption. You know, it's one of the ledgers which is being used every week by companies to transfer tens of millions of dollars, and so it's you know, it's a project that's, to state the obvious, got real legs, and it's you know, solving a big practical problem that's resonating with companies. You know, and we like Ripple. We work closely with them, and you know, it's great to see them, you know, at least 3/4 vindicated last week after this ridiculous 2-year period of uncertainty.
I actually, because I've been thinking about this a lot since I've been making content about XRP. The court case was exciting. You know, that was great. We came out 3/4 on top. You put it that way, it's funny. But the more exciting part of all of this is how they're going to define the token, because it does so much. It can't really be classified as a currency, because it can do payments, but it can be a store of value too. It's a utility token. It can be stable if operating at a high enough price. You know, it's so going to be so difficult. I actually think they're going to have to create a new word for this asset, and assets that do something similar to XRP. Like XLM, for example. There's going to have to be a new word. And I think when that happens, that's the most exciting point, because then you've got the Law Commission in the UK who are trying to look at crypto in the UK and figure out which court they need to go in, like how they're going to be handled, the terms that they're going to use, the MiCA bill. Like this is all going to have to acknowledge what these, most particularly XRP and XLM, are going to have to be defined as, because they don't fit right now.
They don't fit. No, I mean, XRP has so many different attributes. It's sort of rather hard to pigeonhole. I think it's got general acceptance from regulators outside the US that it's, it's a commodity, which is obviously a very good thing. And last week, hallelujah, the SEC got it what it asked for, right? It asked for it asked for regulation by litigation, and the courts basically created, a very, very clear piece of case law, which is that a digital token is not inherently a security. Can be, depending on the circumstances of the sale, but it's not inherently a security. That's huge. Yeah. That runs counter to everything the SEC has been saying for the past 2 years, and I think it lifts an enormous shadow off the whole altcoin sector, which is obviously important for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I've just got one more here, because I know when the court case did resolve, lots of people were heading over to Uphold to find that they couldn't log in, or something was happening there.
Yeah.
Can you explain what happens in the background? Like, because the way in my brain I see it, I know it's probably like chaos, but I either see it as the website, the amount of users on the website right now is causing some sort of like technological backlog, bottleneck, or there's other issues. Where is it more?
Yeah, I'll give a little bit of background first. I mean, if you go back to 2021, which was the last enormous spike in demand, our uptime, we believe our uptime was better than Coinbase and better than Binance. If you look at it last year or the year before, we averaged uptime of around 99.9%. And the other 0.1% is planned maintenance time. What happened last week was, it was utterly extraordinary. Within 15 minutes of the first tweet announcing the result, we were the only platform in the United States that offered XRP, and our systems are calibrated and been tested for 10 times the volume we saw at the peak of the 21 market.
Right.
Last week, we saw a 50x spike within 15 minutes. So it was the velocity of the demand and the suddenness of the demand that completely overwhelmed, our systems. I mean, and it's just one of those really freak events where you're literally the only platform in the whole of the United States, and everybody's trying to buy XRP. And what happened in the background, some of the DNS that allows different systems to speak to each other couldn't cope. So anyway, I was really proud of our team, because you can imagine the stress. You can imagine the stress of, being down during the biggest ever period of demand for XRP. They were very, very calm, and got the site back up in relatively good order. Lessons came out of it, obviously, but it was an unprecedented and kind of freak event.
Yeah. Have you kind of made plans for something like that or bigger to happen again?
Yes, we have.
Yeah. I obviously from the lessons learned. But it's really hard. It's really hard for you guys to know like what that volume actually even looks like, because we don't have full adoption or full bull run even yet. So it's really hard to know.
Yeah, well, I remember when we did the testing around, being able to cope with 10x the peak volume of 2021, and 2021 was a huge year. We were just like, well, we're really well set. And as I say, last week it was 50x. But it wasn't so much the 50x over a period of time you could cope with. It was the violent suddenness of the spike, which meant you couldn't scale,
Well, I'd imagine there'd be very few locations on the internet that could handle that such volume. It's like you said, at the velocity, and so It's not
I
really
think,
your fault.
yeah. Well, it was very frustrating, and I do apologize to people who were affected, but it was one of those, freak events that I think any platform would have struggled with.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. And as the other exchanges started to relist XRP, I'm sure that alleviated some of the tension on the system there.
It did, but the funny thing is, when the other platforms started to relist, I mean, Coinbase relisted. It's more expensive than Uphold. And the interesting thing is, we saw net deposits into Uphold. We expected to see net outflows, but actually we've consistently seen net inflows, which is pretty interesting, right? And I think it's partly to do with the fact that, for 2 years we've supported the XRP community when all of the other exchanges didn't. So, I think we feel very proud and vindicated to have taken that risk. And I do think that in this climate, people put a huge premium on trust and security and transparency. And Uphold is the only, look, we're not perfect, but we're the only platform that publishes its customer assets and liabilities in real time on a public website. We update that information every 30 seconds, and we've been doing that since 2014. And all of this is audited by RSM Robson Rhodes, a very well-known audit firm that operates in the US and UK, and we're always 100% reserved. So when you think about it, you may not know this actually, but the genesis story of Uphold is it came out of the 2008 financial crash. That crash was all about, you didn't know what financial institutions were doing with customer money behind the scenes, because banks are inherently opaque and you simply don't know what's happening behind the scenes. And so one of the founding concepts of Uphold was, hey, how about a financial institution that doesn't lend out customer money ever for any reason, and publicly displays every 30 seconds the assets and liabilities to which the company is subject. And of course, that fact pattern means that a bank run is impossible on Uphold. You can't have a bank run because all the assets are there and are available for withdrawal. And I think over the past week or so, we've really seen a lot of XRP people coming to us, and I'm sure it's got a lot to do with trust and security.
Yeah, this community in particular is very passionate about that side of things. And I have to say, just because we're running short on time here now, we the community have loved Uphold. So if some of my questions seemed a bit like pryy, it's not out of malintent. It's we've thoroughly enjoyed Uphold and the ability to access XRP there when many others stopped allowing it. So thank you from my community to you and everyone in the team. It was an absolute pleasure to talk to you today. I hope we get to see each other in person at some point, in maybe at the London office.
That would be nice, Lewis. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I've enjoyed chatting.
Thank you very much. I hope you get to enjoy time outside of your meetings in Nassau.
Great.
It looks lovely over there, so try and enjoy some time.
Great stuff.
Hard at work. All right.
Nice to talk to you, Lewis.
Thanks very much, Simon.
Take care. Cheers. Bye-bye.